So we can go through Anapanasati Sutta now, which is Majjhima 118, mindfulness of breathing. It says that on one occasion the Buddha was living at Savatthi in the Eastern Park and Migara's mother's place, with many well-known elder disciples, Venerable Sariputta, Mahamoggallana, Mahakassapa, Mahakachayana, Mahakotika, Mahakapina, Mahachunda, Venerable Anuruddha, Venerable Ananda, together with other well-known elder disciples. So those disciples, those elders bhikkhus, were exhorting, instructing junior bhikkhus, sometimes 10, 20, 30, 40 bhikkhus at a time. And those junior bhikkhus, being exhorted, being instructed, sooner or later understood the noble attainments. Then the Buddha said that upon the completion of Pavarana on the full moon of the 15th Uposatha day, the Buddha was sitting down in the open, surrounded by the bhikkhu sangha. Then the Buddha, having surveyed the completely silent sangha of bhikkhus, addressed the bhikkhus. I am resolved upon this path of practice. My mind is resolved upon this path of practice. Therefore, bhikkhus, make even more of an effort to reach the unreached, to attain the unattained, to realize the unrealized. And the bhikkhus from the countryside returned to Savatthi to see the Buddha, and then the elder bhikkhus continued to exhort junior bhikkhus 10, 20, 30, 40 at a time. So on the next full moon, on the full moon night of Komudi, the 4th month, the Buddha was sitting down in the open, surrounded by bhikkhu sangha. Having completely surveyed the silent sangha of bhikkhus, he addressed the bhikkhus. He said, Bhikkhus, this assembly is free from chit-chat. Bhikkhus, this assembly is free from the idle chatter. Purity has been established in its essence. Such is this sangha of bhikkhus. So that clearly indicates that the sangha of the bhikkhus that the Buddha was praising was basically an Arya sangha, which means there were no putujanas there. There were no the lowest of them at least had the right view, and that's what the Buddha goes on talking about it here. In this sangha of bhikkhus there are arahants, with taints destroyed, having come to an end, done what should be done, laid down the burden, reached the cause of peace, with the fetter of existence wasted away, liberated by right understanding. Such is this sangha of bhikkhus. Bhikkhus, in this sangha of bhikkhus, there are bhikkhus with 5 lower fetters wasted away, who will attain parinibbana once they've been reborn, being of the nature to not return from that world. Such is this sangha of bhikkhus. Bhikkhus, in this sangha of bhikkhus, there are bhikkhus with the 3 fetters wasted away, with greed, hatred, and delusion reduced, once returners, who having come to this world once will make an end to suffering. Such is this sangha of bhikkhus. Bhikkhus, in this sangha of bhikkhus, there are bhikkhus with the 3 fetters wasted away, stream enterers, not of the nature of the lower realms, certain of having an end in full awakening. Bhikkhus, there are such bhikkhus in this sangha of bhikkhus. So yes, the entire bhikkhu sangha there, that the Buddha instructed beforehand, that he said, make the effort and reach the unreached, attain the unattained, realize the unrealized, was an Arya sangha, and it's important to note. Well, we'll see why, but there were no putujanas in that assembly. So for those who were not yet arahants, who still had work to do, then the Buddha decided in this particular sutta to instruct on mindfulness of breathing. Before he started, he listed all the ways that these bhikkhus, who are not shortened in sotapannas, can do the rest of the work that they need to do and reach the unreached and so on. He said bhikkhus, there are bhikkhus who dwell practicing the practice of the development of the 4 ways to set up mindfulness. There are such bhikkhus in the Sangha of bhikkhus. So in the noble Arya Sangha, there are bhikkhus who practice Satipatthana. Then bhikkhus in this Sangha of bhikkhus, the noble Sangha of bhikkhus, there are bhikkhus who dwell practicing the practice of development of the 4 right efforts, the 4 foundations of potency, the 5 strengths, the bhikkhus who practice 7 factors of awakening, the bhikkhus who practice the Noble Eightfold Path. There are such bhikkhus in this Sangha of bhikkhus. In this Sangha of bhikkhus, there are bhikkhus who dwell practicing the practice of development of loving kindness, development of compassion, development of gladness, development of indifference, who dwell practicing the practice of the development of non-beauty, asubha, who dwell practicing the practice of the development of the perception of impermanence. Bhikkhus, there are such bhikkhus in this Sangha of bhikkhus. And then it says in this Sangha of bhikkhus, there are those who practice the development mindfulness of breathing. So all these relatively popular or certainly familiar practices in contemporary Buddhism are practiced by those who are not shorter than Sotapannas, which is something that Venerable Nyanamoli was saying, but I certainly repeat it often. You need the right view in order to know what to do. As in order to know how to practice, you need to understand what the practice is. It's just the most obvious reasoning. You can arrive at that by reasoning, that you can't do something unless you know what you're supposed to do. And that's why the Buddha insists on listing all these people who are there, that none of them, that's like pure heartwood, and none of them is shorter than like a Sotapanna. And then these are the practices that these noble disciples would do. Now that doesn't mean that the person shouldn't keep trying to understand what these practices are, because through understanding you will become at least a Sotapanna. But the problem is that certainly in the contemporary Buddhism, the one that you hear a lot in the West, people believe that automatically doing these things as some sort of technique or some sort of repetitive method, you will arrive at understanding. But they can be done properly only by those who already understood it. So it's sort of self-defeating if it's done improperly. So, which page are we on now? Okay, yeah. So let's get on. So it says, bhikkhus in this Sangha, bhikkhus are bhikkhus who dwell practicing practice of the development of mindfulness of breathing. Mindfulness of breathing, when developed, made much of, is of great fruit, great benefit. Mindfulness of breathing, when developed and made much of, fulfills the 4 ways to set up mindfulness. So that's another thing. Another contemporary, well-established perception when it comes to Anapanasati is that you do Anapanasati in the form of watching your nostrils or similar, and you enter the jhana. Automatically, you will eventually enter the jhana, have the experience of jhana through watching your nostrils. And here it is, the sutta in question, the Anapanasati Sutta, and there's absolutely no mention of that whatsoever. It says that by developing the mindfulness of breathing, you develop, surprise, mindfulness. You develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. By developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you automatically get a jhana? No. You develop the 7 factors of awakening. By developing 7 factors of awakening, you develop wisdom and liberation. You become an arahant. In some other talks, I mentioned the relationship between Anapanasati and jhana, as in Anapanasati or many other ways of developing mindfulness can serve as a basis for you to attend to the theme of jhana, as the Buddha would describe. Then on account of that, develop mindfulness on the basis of breathing or something else. Properly develop mindfulness, you can develop theme of jhana. But thinking that doing a meditation method of watching your breath automatically results in jhana, that all came much later, and it's certainly not found in the suttas. So then the Buddha carries on, develop in what way bhikkhus made much of, in what way is mindfulness of breathing of much fruit, much benefit. Bhikkhu has gone to the forest, gone to the root of a tree, gone to an empty dwelling, sits down, having crossed his legs, making his back straight, having set up mindfulness in front. We spoke about it in the first audio talk about mindfulness of the body. So just mindful, he breathes in, just mindful, he breathes out. Breathing in long, he understands, I'm breathing in long. Breathing out long, he understands, I'm breathing out long. He's not focusing on what he's doing. He's not trying to attend and catch every moment and see things arising and passing away. He understands what he's doing. He understands what's occurring. And in order for you to understand something, you cannot be absorbed in it. Forcefully absorbed, even worse. Prying upon like an owl trying to catch a fish. You need to understand what's going on. It means you already need to start paying attention to the nature of what's present, the nature of your action, in this case, the nature of breathing. So he understands what he's doing. He's breathing in long, he understands he's breathing in long, and so on. Experiencing the whole body, he trains. I will breathe in as one who experiences the whole body. Again, we mentioned that in the previous talk. It's that body, that peripheral mindfulness, the image of the body that appears, that's discerned in that indirect manner within the... I think I'll have to stop saying peripheral mindfulness, because just mindfulness, but, well, I want to stop saying, but I can't, because obviously if I say mindfulness, people will regard that as coming under any idea of mindfulness that they might have. So, the body, the image of body that appears in the peripheral mindfulness, the properly established mindfulness, that's the body that you're trying to experience, without attending it, without making it a foreground, without making it an object. And in the same manner, that's how you start calming the determinations of the body, the determinations of those peripheral images. In the same manner, I will breathe in as one who experiences joy, experiences pleasure. It's all done on that background level. As in, the more you discern the background, you realize how much input you can have in it, without over-attending it, without trying to make it an object of your meditation, but discerning it for what it is. So then it carries on. I will breathe in as one who experiences the determinations of the mind. I will breathe out as one who experiences the determinations of the mind. Determinations of the mind being perception and feeling. And you cannot possibly attend perception and feeling at the same time as a meditation object, but you can certainly discern them in the periphery. Usually it's the feeling that is discerned on the peripheral. That's where the craving is, that's where everything else is. So, I will breathe in as one who experiences that mind. I will breathe out as the one who experiences that mind. He will enjoy the mind, he will compose the mind, he will liberate the mind. The mind being the ultimate negative, the ultimate background, the ultimate general, the ultimate peripheral, determined by by that which appears in front of you, perception, by the feeling, that experience of those two things that are simultaneously present in itself. That experience is the mind, and you cannot possibly attend to that, because that would require you to step outside of that mind and then look at it as an object. But you can certainly discern its outlines and then discern its signs, the chitta nimitta, and that is all in that peripheral that we talk about very often. So developed in this way, because made much of it in this way, mindfulness of breathing is of great fruit, great benefit. And then it says, so in what way, because made much of, in what way does mindfulness of breathing fulfill the 4 ways to set up mindfulness? The 4 satipatthanas. Because on whatever occasion a bhikkhu breathing in long understands I'm breathing in long, or breathing out long understands I'm breathing out long, or breathing in short understands I'm breathing in short, or breathing out short understands I'm breathing out short, or trains, I will breathe in as the one who experiences the whole body, as the one who discerns the whole body. I will breathe out as the one who experiences whole body, or trains, I will breathe out calming the body determinations. I will breathe out calming the determinations of the body. On that occasion, the bhikkhu dwells as an observer of body in the body, ardent, aware, mindful, having removed covetousness and unhappiness in the world. In this way I speak of certain body within the bodies, that is in and out breathing. So the body that you start discerning peripherally on account of your mindfulness of in and out breathing is that which stands for your experience of the body there. We said that before, but it certainly doesn't hurt repeating it. So then he goes further. Bhikkhus, on whatever occasion Bhikkhu trains, I will breathe in as the one who experiences joy, breathing out as the one who experiences joy, and so on. It says that on that occasion the Bhikkhu dwells as an observer of feeling in feelings. So it's a simultaneous presence of feeling within a feeling. Ardent, aware, mindful, having removed covetousness and unhappiness in the world. And by the way, when we talk about simultaneous presence, it doesn't mean that two things simultaneously arisen for a second or two or a moment and you must catch them. It means that they endure on two different levels of generality. Like a mood, for example, you can be in the same mood for 2 or 3 days, while on a more particular level you can have various sort of fleeting perceptions or feelings of a lower kind. And those two domains remain simultaneously present. So if you become if your mindfulness gets established upon the general mood and endurance of that general mood, you won't be affected, and you will certainly be mindful automatically of all the things that arise within that. So that's what it meant. He's mindful of body within the body. So if you're mindful or feeling within the feeling or feeling in the feeling. So when a person is mindful of the peripheral image of the body that they have, the body there out in the world, any particular attention given to the body that appears as an object for you, that's within that body. And you don't have to be tracing it or trying to not lose it, because that's automatically in the body that you're already mindful of. Like a gatekeeper. You find a gate, and then you don't have to chase the things that go in. You just stay at the gate, mindful, knowingly that if you stay at the gate, you know exactly who is inside and who goes outside. That was a simile from the suttas. That doesn't mean you stare at the gate like a robot every second, trying to not blink. Because if you blink at the gate, no, just stand there and you will know who passes. That's it. So that's how a monk is properly mindful of feelings in the feelings, or feeling within the feeling. You find a general feeling which will then automatically include whatever is particularly felt. You're not focusing hard on a particular feeling and then try to discern feeling within that. So bhikkhus, on whatever occasion bhikkhu trains, I will experience as the one who experiences the mind. I will breathe out as the one who experiences the mind. On that occasion, the bhikkhu dwells as an observer of mind within the mind. Ardent, aware, mindful, having removed covetousness and unhappiness in the world. Bhikkhus, for the one who is forgetful, unaware, I do not speak of mindfulness of breathing. On whatever occasion bhikkhu trains, I will breathe in as the one who sees impermanence. I will breathe out as the one who sees impermanence. I will breathe in as the one who sees dispassion. I will breathe out as the one who sees dispassion. I will breathe in as the one who sees cessation. I will breathe out as the one who sees cessation. Or trains, I will breathe in as the one who sees letting go. I will breathe out as the one who sees letting go. On that occasion, bhikkhu dwells as an observer of phenomenon in phenomena, dhammas in dhamma, ardent, aware, mindful, having removed covetousness and unhappiness of the world. That's basically when you discern the phenomenon of the peripheral, the dhamma of the peripheral, the nature of the peripheral, the nature of mindfulness, you automatically see that anything you attend within that experience is within that peripheral. Those dhammas are already within these general dhammas. Having understood the general nature of a phenomenon, you have understood any single individual manifestation of that nature, i.e. a particular phenomenon. So developed in this way, bhikkhus made much in this way, mindfulness of breathing fulfills the 4 ways to set up mindfulness. Then it says, bhikkhus, in what way, made much of in what way, does the 4 ways of setting up mindfulness fulfill the 7 factors of awakening? Bhikkhus, on whatever occasion a bhikkhu dwells as an observer of body in body, ardent, aware, mindful, having removed covetousness and unhappiness in the world, on that occasion, having set up mindfulness, he is not forgetful. Bhikkhus, on whatever occasion a bhikkhu's mindfulness is set up, he is not forgetful. On that occasion, bhikkhu's mindfulness factor of awakening is aroused. On that occasion, the bhikkhu develops the mindfulness factor of awakening. On that occasion, the bhikkhu's mindfulness factor of awakening goes to fulfillment. So, again, if a person sort of has trouble understanding what we mean by mindfulness, peripheral mindfulness, dwell on the phenomenon of forgetfulness. You remember things when you have a composure present in your mind, when it's like a general presence of your mind, not when you sort of are focusing on sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, sensations in your body. That does not maintain your non-forgetfulness. That actually takes you the way of being absorbed with the object, which actually makes you forget everything else. So you don't want to find one point, like one-pointedness often translated. Yeah, you can call it one-pointedness, but there is a way of becoming one-pointed by focusing so hard on an object of your perception, even sensations, bodily sensations, which is just object of perception of touch, whereby you forget everything else. Sure, and sensuality works exactly the same way. When the mind gets bent on having something, you pretty much lose perspective on everything else. But then there is the one-pointedness that we talk about, which is you find a more general point, like the domain of the peripheral, for example, the background of your experience, that then automatically includes everything else. So it's not a one-pointedness that makes you absorbed so you forget everything else. It's the one-pointedness that there's nothing left out. Everything is included. So then he goes further. That's how to develop mindfulness. Then the dwelling mindful in this way, he thinks about, he ponders over, he undergoes an investigation of a phenomena. I mean, that is pretty self-explanatory. You actually actively make the effort to think and understand. That's the only way the understanding can come about, made with mindfulness. So he undergoes an investigation of that phenomenon with an understanding. Bhikkhus on whatever occasion, bhikkhu dwelling mindful in this way, thinks about, ponders over, undergoes an investigation of the phenomena with an understanding. On that occasion, the bhikkhu's investigation of phenomena factor of awakening is aroused, Dhamma Vichaya. On that occasion, the bhikkhu develops the investigation of phenomena factor of awakening. Then for one, thinking about, pondering over, undergoing an investigation of the phenomena, understanding, active energy is aroused. On that occasion, the bhikkhu thinking about, pondering over, undergoing an investigation of that phenomena with an understanding, active energy is aroused. On that occasion, the bhikkhu's energy factor of awakening is aroused. That energy factor of awakening goes to fulfillment. For the one with energy aroused, a joy not of the flesh arises. Means a joy not of a bodily kind. And what joy is not of a bodily kind? It's the joy of knowledge, joy of discernment, joy of peace. And that's in the background of that which is your body. Because there is no other body where it could be. No other space for it to be. So it's either in the body or it's in your mindfulness of the body. Bhikkhus on whatever occasion, that joy arises, the body comes down, and then the mind comes down. On that occasion, the bhikkhu's tranquility factor of awakening is aroused. With a tranquil body, for one who is happy, the mind is composed. On whatever occasion for a bhikkhu with a tranquil body, for one who is happy, the mind is composed. On that occasion, the bhikkhu's composure factor of awakening is aroused, samadhi. On that occasion, the bhikkhu develops the composure factor of awakening, and that composure factor goes to fulfillment. He is the one who looks on properly at the mind composed in this way. On whatever occasion, a bhikkhu is the one who looks on properly at the mind composed in this way. On that occasion, the bhikkhu's indifference factor of awakening is aroused, upekkha. On that occasion, the bhikkhu develops the indifference factor of awakening. On that occasion, the indifference factor goes to fulfillment. Bhikkhus on whatever occasion, bhikkhu dwells as an observer of feeling and feeling, mind in mind, phenomena in phenomena, ardent, aware, mindful, having removed covetousness and unhappiness in the world, in regard to the world. On that occasion, having set up mindfulness, he is not forgetful. And he goes to repeat Dhamma Vichaya and so on. And he said, in what way? Because does the seven factors of enlightenment, of awakening, fulfill wisdom and liberation. Here, because a bhikkhu develops the mindfulness factor of awakening, supported by seclusion, supported by dispassion, supported by cessation, resulting in relinquishment. He develops the investigation of phenomena factor of the awakening, the energy factor of awakening, the joy factor of awakening, develops the tranquility factor of awakening, develops the composure factor of awakening. He develops the indifference factor of awakening, supported by seclusion, supported by dispassion, supported by cessation, resulting in relinquishment. Developed in this way, the same factors of awakening fulfill the wisdom and liberation, full understanding. One becomes an arahant. So that concludes this Anapanasati Sutta. This audio can go in conjunction with the mindfulness of the body, certainly the part 1 of those audio notes, because it's lots of things that are mentioned there are fully applicable here. Most notably, obviously, that one needs to have the right view in order to do this practice correctly, and to stop expecting an automatic result of some sort of experience confused to be jhana coming out of watching the nostrils or watching the belly, or whichever way people do mindfulness of breathing today. Mindfulness of breathing is about understanding the nature of action of breathing. You could say it like that. It's understanding, like I'm breathing in long, I understand I'm breathing in long. I don't have to keep telling to myself that I'm breathing in long. I don't have to keep attending every second of that breath. Why? Because of that breath. Because I understand what I'm doing while I'm doing it. That's the essence of mindfulness. Knowing what you're doing while you're doing it means being peripherally aware of what's directly happening. So that should be enough for now.